Sir, nice to see you, sir.
Thank you, Greta.
Thank you for letting us come back to your office to talk.
You're always welcome.
Thank you, sir. All right, you have certainly gotten the attention of the President of the United States with Governor Brewer and with Senator Kyle about the border in Arizona. You've gotten the attention. Are you getting the action?
Well, apparently there is going to be 1,200 National Guard sent somewhere, and we were told it's just the desk jobs, but I'm glad that that's a good first step. But it's very clear that we need 3,000 on the Arizona border. We need more surveillance capability, and we need better fences and a complete defense. We can secure the border. They've made great strides in San Diego. They've made great strides in Texas, and they've even made great improvements in the Yuma sector of our Arizona-Mexico border. We have two sectors, Yuma and Tucson, and Tucson sector is still very badly lacking. Why
was Tucson sort of left behind in this? Why not the attention there?
I think it's a combination of factors, including the fact that the most vicious of all the cartels is the Sinaloa drug cartel. It's headed by a guy named Chapo Guzman. I mean, this guy is a remarkable criminal, and they happen to be located just on the other side of the Arizona-Mexico border, and they are very powerful, they're very influential, and they're very, very active.
Yeah, I just read this morning, I mean, just terrible stories in Mexico. There were 6 dead bodies found. 3, they've all been tortured. 3 had their hearts cut out. They had a Z, 3 had a Z in their chest for Zeta, which apparently is one of the newest cartels. Vicious, terrible crimes.
Zetas are the ex-Special Forces Mexican military people who are especially vicious. One of the things that people don't understand is how vicious these cartels and human smugglers are, and they're practically one right now. Not only what they do to each other, what they do to innocent Mexican citizens, but what they do to people when they bring them to places like Phoenix, Arizona. They hold them in drop houses under unspeakable conditions. They hold them for ransom. You know, the #1 kidnapping capital in the world is Mexico City. #2, Phoenix, Arizona. So when I see our Secretary of Homeland Security and others say the border is much more secure, then why is it that Phoenix, Arizona is the #2 kidnapping capital of the world? It certainly means we have a lot of work to do.
Well, this is no ordinary Homeland Security chief, though. This is your former governor of Arizona before your current governor.
I'm very disappointed in the former governor because as far back as 2006, Janet Napolitano asked for additional troops on the border, also asked for the federal government to repay the expenses that are involved with illegal immigration. I guess she proved again that old adage, it isn't so much where you stand, it's where you sit.
How about the new governor, Governor Brewer?
She's doing a fine job, and she's standing up for Arizona, and I'm very proud of the work that she is doing. This is a tough situation. Arizona would never have enacted this law if the federal government had performed its responsibilities of securing the borders. And I could throw numbers at you. 1.2 million pounds of marijuana intercepted in the Tucson sector last year, 241,000 illegal immigrants crossed the border, and yes, there have been some improvements, but the people in the southern part of my state are still not living a secure environment. Every citizen has that right.
Well, you're just talking about the financial and the drug. It's the violence. I mean, those are bad enough, but it's the violence that, that we're getting over the border and the really horrible stories we're reading about. I'm certain why we're not getting more of those. That seems inevitable, unfortunately.
I think one of the most underreported stories is the brutality. But by the way, there's also been killings of a lot of media people and reporters in Mexico that have been reporting on these crimes. But 22,000 Mexican citizens have been murdered in the last 2 or 3 years. And also, there's an election coming up in Mexico. If the wrong person were elected, who chose not to fight these drug cartels, as President Calderon, much to his credit, is doing, then I think the implications are very severe. And finally, could I mention again, we ought to be talking about who and what is creating the demand for these drugs, these $65 billion a year business or whatever it is, astronomical numbers. We in the United States are, and we ought to start looking at that aspect of it as well.
Well, from what I'm told it's the business people who like the cheap labor in this country, who don't want a comprehensive immigration reform, and it's the far left, the other side of the spectrum, who want who don't want to offend a huge population in this country. So it's this giant middle that's screaming for help, but these other two ends are making it difficult to get any sort of reform or security.
Well, I think that's accurate. I'd also add one additional point. I think there's a political calculation going on that the Democrats may be able to get a solid Hispanic vote in years to come. Yet an overwhelming majority of the American people think we have to secure our borders. They understand what Arizona did, and they oppose this outrageous boycott that's going on of our state, which would only hurt 30% of our population, which happens to be Hispanic.
The Gulf, horrible catastrophe going on right there, and just looking at the numbers, about 67% of the American people in a recent poll have a negative feeling towards the way the federal government is handling it. Coincidentally, with Katrina at this time, 62% had a negative view of how the federal government is handling it. How would you handle it differently? I
think I would be much more active in coordination and consultation with the local authorities and the governors. Bobby Jindal has raised legitimate concerns, the governor of Louisiana. I'd be working much more closely with the governors and the local authorities. Now, I have some sympathy for the president because this happened on his watch. That's true that he's getting blame that perhaps he may not deserve. But you've got to give the impression, and not only the impression, but you have to actively solicit the involvement and support of the people who are directly responsible to the voters, even the local sheriff, the parish leaders, the governors. I would be consulting with them every single day, because when they criticize, then there's great legitimacy to their criticisms, because it's their constituents that are going through this terrible experience.
Well, a lot of environmentalists are critical of the president. I don't know what they expect him to do, but he is getting hit from a lot of sides, as people are saying he should be doing more.
Well, I think the best way to find out what more needs to be done, talk to the people on the ground there, people who have the experience and the knowledge. And again, I refer to the governors, the local authorities in particular. Also, I think looking back, you could argue that the administration placed too much reliance on BP and gave the impression that BP was going to solve this problem only with the oversight of the government. The government has to take charge, and I think that Admiral Thad Allen seems to be doing a good job.
Next, more with Senator McCain.